what I'm going to do is give you a very preliminary demo of Tango. And remember, this is beta 1. So this code was developed in early December. And of course, we continue to make changes and a lot of innovation. But this is a stable build, a stable environment. So I decided to use this one, get the salient points across. So I'll walk you through a few things. Before I do that, I do want you all to understand that by the time we go GA, or some people call it IA, for initial availability in Q2, there will be 3 tiers. So there'll be 3 access points, one for catalog. And catalog is not part of the demo right now. It's not part of the demo today, but it in 2 quarters. Then the second access point or a separate tile will be pipeline, which is code stream. You have pipelines incorporated in as if it were part of one monolith, but it's not a monolith. And third would be this whole IS, the infrastructure, the blueprints, etc., right, which is code assembly. So, but anyway, so that's the end state. Right now, we don't have catalog, but we have pipeline and some components of the code assembly. So let me walk you through. First, there is this provider who's a cloud admin, Jason, needs to set up cloud accounts. And so I'll just walk you through some simple ways of creating cloud accounts. And then, of course, after that, Jason, who's the cloud admin, is going to create cloud zones. Also, Jason or Shauna is our DevOps admin, would set up projects. Also, the configuration mappings, which are very critical, would also be set up by Jason and Shauna. I have logged in as overall administrator, so I can see everything, but we will have role-based access control. And so what you're going to see, the view from a JSON standpoint would be very different, which will be more complete, I would say, than the view for Scott, who's a developer. Let me first walk you through the breadth and then a little bit of the infrastructure. So we also have our famous blueprints. So this is something that's can be used by both Jason or Scott. Essentially, this is way to develop your infrastructure as code or your applications as code. And I will, of course, walk you through a live example of how it is done. We also have pipelines. This is how you develop your continuous integration, continuous delivery. And for this demo, we have pipeline that uses a blueprint, as well as pipeline that definitely, and I would say separately deploys Kubernetes application. So the same application deployed as a blueprint versus the same application that's deployed as containers in a Kubernetes environment. So we wanted to show that pipelines are an independent service by itself that can work with various different platforms. And of course, you would have deployments, and I'm going to walk you through exactly what each of the deployments do. Okay, so and this is a very very cool capability that we have, and it merits some time for me to walk you through it. So first, let's walk a little bit through what Jason would do. So here are the cloud accounts. I'll just go. I have already created these cloud accounts. I mean, really, I don't want to spend a lot of time here. But if you look at Amazon Cloud Account, here are my access credentials. That's really the most important thing. But the other important thing here is regions. So in Amazon, you can obviously select various regions. Here I've selected US East. And another thing that happens is, I mean, you can of course select multiple regions. But the moment you select a region, cloud zones. So a cloud zone is by default is going to incorporate all the compute, storage, network capacity within a particular region, right? So that's the default, and then you can go and you can specify something that's more granular. Okay, so here it's the US East. That's my Amazon region. Ignore the errors. This is still a development sort of an environment, stable, but there are some errors that you should ignore. I did the similar thing for Azure. So NSXT is not a cloud. Right now, again, this is a work in progress environment. So we have treated it like that, but this is going to be a credential store. So again, this is very simple for NSXT or any store. You give your credentials, username, password, and that's really all there is to it. And you give a name that you remember that this is a particular type of credential store. vCenter. So here, let me just bring this up. Again, it is going to be vCenter credentials, but in particular, what it's going to do is it's going to ask you a few questions. So first, it's going to ask you to select data centers within a particular vCenter. In this demo environment, I have only one data center, which is conveniently called data center, but you can select one or multiple data centers if you have multiple of them, right? So you can select them here. And then, of course, if you have an NSXT or NSXV endpoint, you can actually specify that here. So I took care of that already, and that's all it is that I need to do. Then I come into Cloud Zones. So Cloud Zone, essentially Cloud Zone is a very important capability. You can think of them as kind of analogous to Amazon's availability zones, though there are quite a few differences as well. But essentially what you need to do, let me just explain using vCenter endpoint. So what I did is I selected a data center, and by default, all the compute within that data center became part of this, this particular Cloud Zone. So let me go into the edit mode to show you what I did. Okay, so by default, it's going to pick all the data. All the compute within a data center. In this case, I have actually two clusters. So let me just remove this tag for a moment and explain what I did. So you can see there is a compute cluster, there is a management cluster. In vCenter, compute cluster was tagged as product and VMware cluster. So what's happening is somebody's trying to develop a demo. In this case, a customer like Scott, who's a developer, is trying to develop an application for VMware. The Scott needs a particular set of compute capacity, and this particular cluster has been earmarked by Cloud Admin or VI Admin to be used for that purpose. So this comes from, I assume this comes from vCenter. And so what's happening is I can say, well, you know what, I want to only select, so I can select things, compute capacity by selection like this, or I can say, you know what, I'm going to select dynamically based on tags, right? So you can actually, dynamic selection is much better. When you do that, you filter things out. I'm going to cancel out of this for a moment, but that's how you create a Cloud Zone. So now that you've created a Cloud Zone, I hope, okay, I see a lot of chat window. I'm ignoring chat, otherwise I'll not be able to complete my demo. Once you do your Cloud Zones, basically you go ahead and you develop a project. Within a project, so project is a very, it's kind of a very evolved and a collaborative construct that we have. It is similar to business groups, but in a way it is a lot different as well. And we'll talk about the differences later. But essentially, in a project, actually, let me just go into this particular project that I created, go into the edit mode, and basically show you that you can add multiple users. In this case, there's only one user for now, but you can add your users, and then you can add your Cloud Zones. So what I have done is I have selected all my 3 zones. What I said is for development environment, it's going to be Amazon in the North Virginia Development Center. Then my Azure is going to be a test zone that's in US West. And then my vCenter instance is in Palo Alto, and that's US West. And I've given them a priority 1, 2, 3, one being the test. So basically, if there are no constraints, everything gets deployed to a dev zone, otherwise test, otherwise prod. And another important thing is a set of configurations. So in this case, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to normalize all the clouds and various configurations within each of the clouds. So for example, if you're looking at a particular set of machine flavors for Amazon, you could say, hey, a small in Amazon, let me just do an edit here. Small maps to T2 nano, large maps to a particular, T2 small. I can add another one called extra large. And this could map to some kind of a T2, extra large, or yeah, you have a large here, right? So you can easily do this. You can create as many different flavors as you want and expose all of these flavors to Scott, who's the developer persona, right? And what you need to do is you would do something similar for all the different cloud accounts. So I did something similar for vCenter as well. Let me just give it a second and open this up. Yeah, here it is. So you can go ahead and create a similar capability for vCenter and essentially make it all the same. Looks like I might have run into an issue here. All right, I might have run into an issue here. As I said, it's a development environment that is a little bit stable. Anyway, so but you get the point. So those are the different flavors that I would create. I would do something similar for images. And before I go into network and storage, I'm going to show you blueprints and then come back to network and storage. I want to illustrate a particular point. Okay. Waiting for this to come through. All right. So for images, I have a very similar mechanism. I can look at my Amazon images, Ubuntu, for example. And in this case, Ubuntu is mapped to a very particular AMI on Amazon. And I will do something very similar for vCenter, where it maps to a particular VMDK file or a template that's saved in vCenter. And in particular, I forget the name, the content library for the vCenter. Okay, so this is how you would normalize things. Now, let me take a moment and go into the blueprint and actually do a demo. So what I'm going to do before I show you the blueprints, let's try a very, very simple one virtual machine blueprint that I want to deploy, right? So I'm going to call it my one VM single machine blueprint, extremely simple, and I'm going to drag and drop compute. A few things you're going to notice in this kind of a canvas. Number one, your infrastructure as code and your UI drag and drop editor. They are actually you can change in one place or the other, and you'll be able to see all the different characteristics. Okay, what happened here? Okay, sorry, it was here. So here I'm going to call this as my VM, right? I'm going to say my instance type is going to be small, and my image is going to be, hold on, I ran into an issue here. Let's try another. Okay. Okay, all right. So anyway, that's it. So all I did is I said, I have my VM, and by the way, if you see my name got modified here as well, right? So if you make any changes in the editor, you will be able to see a corresponding change reflected here in the blueprint editor as well, right? So all I have is very simple VM like this, and let me go ahead and deploy this one. So here I'm going to create a new deployment. My one VM, all right, or my test VM, whatever, doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and deploy that. So once you hit create and you're actually going and deploying this, it's submitting a request, and it says the blueprint request has been submitted. Let me go into the deployment screen. And basically what you'll see is there's a plan. So it's going to show that this is my deployment, and this deployment is actually happening. And by the time we go GA, you'll see a very, very detailed execution plan that we are going to expose. But as you can see, anything that is, it's a very live feed that's happening. Basically, as the tasks are completed, you'll see an execution that shows up here. And just now, what happened is it actually went ahead and deployed it. Here is my deployment details. I'm going to say that, so because I didn't give any other constraints, it went ahead and deployed onto Amazon, which was my priority one dev environment, and it deployed Ubuntu, and it deployed a small instance, right? So this is a very, very simple way. I mean, as you can see, it didn't take me much time to go ahead and deploy this. Now, let's say I want to make a change. I want to change this to Medium. I changed my mind, and I want to now deploy this one. And so a very important capability and a departure from our VRA today is the fact that you can update an existing deployment, right? So the moment I said, go ahead and change my test VM, which was small, what happened is it went ahead and decided to do a diff. And it said the only way in this case I can do a diff, I can update is I can drop my existing VM, and I can recreate a new VM, because that's the only way I can update an existing deployment. If it is a non-destructive operation, it will try to do that. But in this case, there's no other choice. So I'll say, go ahead and update it. And what you'll see is it's going to go ahead and update the same existing deployment, but instead it's going to now change it to a different type of VM. So while this is happening, and we'll come back to it later, let's actually go ahead and look at how you would build a much complicated blueprint, right? So let's just say it's a Compass app. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, fine, this is my web tier, right? So my web tier, and I'm going to say it's a small Ubuntu. Now let's actually look at a few other constraints. So first thing is I want to say this is a web tier, so I want to have a cluster, right? So I can say I want to have a cluster of, let's say, 3. And I don't know if you noticed, but your user interface here changed. It's going to show you a cluster. Another thing I want to show you is that you can actually show constraints, right? So you can say, hey, I want to put some constraints. I want to tag this as production only. Okay, and if you did that, you can see that the tag showed up here, and it also showed up that it's a compute of type web, and it's essentially a cluster of 3, right? So all I had to do was something very simple like that. Let me show you load balancer. This is such an easy way to show, but a lot of engineering work has happened in the background. So my load balancer looks very simple. Here is my load balancer. And basically, I'm saying that I want this load balancer to really talk to a cluster of 3 web virtual machines, web instances. I'm going to come to network in a bit. I want this to be internet facing, right? And then I'm going to specify some more properties. So what I'm going to do is let me bring networking into the picture. Let me add another compute here. And this compute is my database. SQL DB, right? Let me make this to be medium. All right. What did I do? Oh, this is a network. Sorry, I mixed and matched a few things. This should be my network. Okay. And okay. All right. So I have a public facing network. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that my load balancer is going to talk to an external public facing network. So that's all I had to do. And if you can see my load balancer, now it has updated the variable to point to a public facing network. I'm going to also do a drag and let me actually make this into a SQL before I forget. Okay. And this is going to be, all right. And then I'm also going to say that I need another network, which is more of a private network. Have these guys talk to a private network, and this guy also talk to a private network here. All right. And in this network, I'm going to make it into an isolated network. All right. That's it, right? That's really it. So what happened here? Okay, I ran into a particular error. Let's see.
Hey, Vipul, you changed the name of the private network, and that broke the link between the
I see.
The VM and the network.
Yeah, between the link. Yeah. Right. Okay. Okay, it doesn't matter. So yeah, thanks so much, Wency. So basically, yeah, I know I broke a link here. I changed the name after I made a link available. But I think the point I'm trying to make with this demo is that it is actually pretty simple to, to make this change. Hold on a second. And I can make this. Hopefully it'll go away with this. And if not, anyway, the thing I wanted to do is I wanted to basically have a proper 3-tier app already that I have built. So basically what I wanted to show is, I'm going to deploy this particular one. As you can see, it has all the various linkages built in, right? And then I would go ahead and deploy this one. So let's actually look at a deployment that's already been done in interest of time. So first and foremost, you can see that the previous VM that I deployed has, again, it's changed from small to medium. So my deployment, my update to the existing deployment has succeeded very well, right? So that's one thing. And this is one very major feature change compared to VRA. Another major feature change is I could just go ahead and deploy straight away. I did not have to go to catalog. I did not have to go give entitlements and all of that stuff. It was very, very crisp, very simple. And then here is an example of the 3-tier app that I just now showed you. And I have a deployment of this app. And if you look at each of the details, here are the different details of the of the deployment. So I will not go into each and every piece of the detail, but the point here is that it's almost like a CMDB. You have every piece, every property, every component that's available that you can actually query using your CLI or API. So every piece of information is available, right? And you can go back to your deployment details or any failure at a later point. Having said that, I will actually come back to, let me go back to infrastructure. I'm reacting to the fact that I have only about 11 more minutes. And let me talk about network profiles and storage profiles. So if you look at network profiles, in my 3-tier application, I did not specify the name of the network profile. What I did is I just said that I want to deploy to a type of network. I said I want a public network, and then I want an isolated network. I'll go back to this blueprint. I'll go back to this public network. And if you look at it, the type of the network is public, right? I don't have the name of the network profile that I've specified. And this is very important because this is what enables this blueprint to be provisioned to multiple clouds, because the kind of network it may select on Amazon may be very different than the kind of network it's going to select on vCenter. So you're not going to hard code a name of a network profile. You just express the intent of the kind of network you need, and all the bindings are done at the time of provision. And another thing I did, which is essentially I specified constraints. I specified prod as a constraint, and essentially what it's going to do is that it's going to match with the right type of network profile at the time of provision. When I look at an internal network or an isolated network, this is again an NSXT kind of on-demand network that it creates. It is completely isolated, and really I don't have a very detailed set of networking properties that I need to specify. Now this is very critical because Scott, he doesn't care. And again, Scott is a developer for those who don't know. He really doesn't know the details of the networking. All he knows is the kind of intent he has behind connecting various components. So, and the same goes for load balancer. When I look at the load balancer, if you see, there are not a lot of complex load balancer configuration that we had to give. He's just expressing load balancer in very, very simple terms, and he's able to get what he needs. So this is the power of cloud agnostic blueprint. Coming back to infrastructure, coming back to network profile, how how does the magic work? So let me actually take a look at network profiles for for the vCenter. So basically, in this case, what we did is we in this case, meaning Jason, who is the cloud admin, would actually create networks. Let's say we would create that in vCenter, and those networks get data collected. And I was going to show you the data collection for the network. Here is the data collection. These networks get data collected from vCenter, from Amazon, from Azure. And what happens is these are in vCenter, this could be port groups in Amazon. These are really various types of subnets. But the point here is that you can actually tag these things based on their capabilities. So here are the different capability tags. For Azure, that's a different kind of a tag. For Amazon, it's a very different kind of a tag, right? And then so on and so forth. So the point is you can tag the networks of different types, but when you come back to the network profile, you're saying that I want a profile where I'm going to expose a very specific set of subnets that can be used by this project. So I have a particular project. There are developers who are part of that project, and you're saying that these developers can use this kind of network, right? So basically, I'm adding those network profiles. In this case, there is only one, but you can add multiple of multiple different subnets here. And then basically, and I'm not going to go into this detail here right now because the user interface is still evolving. But the point is, I have a way of creating NSXT on-demand networks through this particular tab. So basically, anytime I want an isolated network that I showed you, it is going to utilize the information here to go ahead and create an on-demand network. And here it's going to use the network, the overlay transport zone. It's going to use an existing network, and it's going to go ahead and basically create a new network based on that. And we're still working on the security groups. This feature is not right now here in beta 1, but it will be eventually. And so this is how you would basically specify a set of networks, both existing and on-demand, as well as the security groups that you need to create. A similar construct is available for storage profiles. Again, this is still being developed, so I'm not going to go into the details here. Maybe in another 2 quarters when we are ready, I'll have an updated demo where I'll show you storage profiles as well. Right. So anyway, the point here is that network, all these different mappings are the ones that separate, that normalize the constructs across various clouds, and that makes it very, very simple for Scott to create a blueprint like this, which is a cloud agnostic blueprint that can be deployed across clouds. Another 5 minutes is what I have. So what I'm going to do is show you really quickly the code stream pipelines as well. As I said, there are 2 kind of applications. There's WordPress for that you deploy through the regular blueprints, as well as WordPress that you deploy into a Kubernetes. So let me show you some of the pipelines that have been created already. So when I look at, actually, maybe some of you may not be familiar, but you typically have a continuous delivery pipeline across 2 different environments, right? In this case, they're called stages. There's a dev stage, there's a production stage, and each of the stages have multiple tasks. And so a dev stage in this case says, hey, first deploy a WordPress, then run some tests, and then check the test results. And then finally, when you're done with that, destroy the entire environment. Okay, and the important thing here to really understand is that for each of these things, you can actually, let me do an edit so that I can show you all the different provider types that we have. And this is a very exhaustive list, okay, and ever increasing list. So the point here is that your pipeline can work across, when you say cloud services automation, this is the code assembly blueprints that I showed you just now, or you can deploy directly to Cloud Foundry. You can invoke REST API to run tests or to do any kind of task you may have. You can run a Jenkins task. You can directly deploy to Kubernetes, right? And there's so many, or you can, people even ask for Microsoft Team Foundation Server, whether we have integration with that or not, right? So you have so many different integration points that you can actually create various kind of tasks and you can run these tasks. You can get your the data or the code or the script for your tasks directly from source control. In this case, Ventsi, we are using Ventsi's GitHub account to really get a particular YAML file, which is your blueprint file that we are going to deploy to run the test. Right. So again, won't go into the detail here, but it's a very exhaustive set of capabilities that we have to really run your various stages for the pipeline, or run the various tasks in a stage. All right, so this is on the pipeline. Let me actually go back. Let me close on this. Let me also show you really quickly a WordPress Kubernetes. And so in this case, it's basically accessing a Kubernetes environment. So if you see this, I'll let it come through. Okay, so it says the provider type is Kubernetes. So what it needs is that it really needs a URL as well as your credentials to really deploy to Kubernetes. So here it's a Kubernetes cluster. We are able to select a particular cluster. It's a particular endpoint. I didn't show you the endpoint, but if you go here, you can actually create your various endpoints, and then you can select them here, and you can deploy your application into Kubernetes. And by the way, if you wonder what is the definition of that application or the environment, that's actually in a GitHub account, and here is the YAML file for that account, right? So just wanted to show that to you very quickly. We also have dashboards, and you can either create various kind of dashboards or use some of the dashboards that are automatically available out of the box. So I haven't run these dashboards in a while, but the point is it's going to show you all the different type of KPIs for checking how healthy is your pipeline of your application. Okay. All right. So that's the overall demo. I think I'm right on the point with just 2 minutes remaining. Let me pause.
So there's been a lot of questions and feedback in the chat. Overall, I think people are pleased, Vipul, with what we're doing. There are some questions around the CLI and so on. And I suggest that probably in March, we should do another demo because we'll actually have more stuff to show, right? Because we'll be closer to the beta and so on.
Totally. And I just rest assured that we did, and this is for the whole team here, there is a CLI, and when we did our beta 1, a lot of our the effort was really for the users to actually use CLI as well as user interface. And yeah, we put a lot of effort into that. But you're right, Naomi. Next time when we do a demo, we'll probably do using CLI.
And actually, Pontus just made a comment in the chat that it's absolutely F-bombing amazing, and he's given us permission to use this as a quote in our marketing. Thanks for that, Pontus.
Awesome.
So Vipul, thanks for that. That was a great demo. So if anybody does have any questions or there's any clarification needed on the GTM, which Lefty covered earlier, and I know that it was hard to hear because of the background noise and so on. If there are any questions, please just fire me or Lefty an email. And the same about the demo, right? Me or Vipul an email, and we will follow up in March with another demo. And if we want to have another session and go into more detail, just feel free to reach out. Mahar, we're hoping